I was wiping down table 12 on the night shift when he walked in. He ordered my exact graduation meal. He placed a pen on the table, engraved with my name and his, a name forbidden for 20 years. "You're about to lose your home for a debt that isn't yours," he whispered. "But tonight, we changed the rules." My revenge started with a $6 pie bill and ended with the click of that pen. My name is Brooklyn Hernandez. On paper, I am a lead clinical specialist at Kestrel Biomotion. That title sounds dry, like the paperwork my mother, Lydia, insists I do. What I actually do is help people move again. I calibrate the pressure sensors in prosthetic limbs that cost more than my car. I analyze complex gait patterns and tweak the microprocessors in dynamic orthotics, allowing someone paralyzed from the waist down to take a step. It is complex, it is vital, and it requires a precision my family reserves only for dissecting my life choices. I am, by all professional metrics, very good at my job. I am in my late 20s, and I was just tapped to head the entire spinal rehab division for our new Western branch. For years, this success did not translate. It was background noise. I lived 3 states away, a buffer I once thought was for my independence, but which only served as a measurement of my required effort. I was the weekend helper. My salary was my own, but my weekends were theirs. Every other Friday, I would load my trunk with supplies they had casually mentioned needing specific coffee grounds, that expensive olive oil, and always, 2 of the oversized apple pies from a bakery near my apartment. Then I would make the 4-hour drive back to that kitchen. My sister, Marissa, is the creative one, the entrepreneur. She runs an online boutique, Marissa's Closet, which mostly involves her filming herself in leggings and convincing high school acquaintances to buy fast fashion drop-shipped from a warehouse I am sure she has never seen. To hear Mom talk. Marissa was the next Vera Wang, a business prodigy. My job, the one that developed technology to help veterans walk, was just filling out forms or playing on the computer. My contributions were measured in physical labor and financial leakage. Could I fix the garbage disposal? It was jammed with fruit pits from the kids' smoothies. Could I watch the kids, Marissa's 2 boys, while she networks for her business networking, was invariably getting a blowout and mimosas with her friends. My bonus last year, Lydia immediately suggested I invest it in Marissa's boutique for new inventory. When I had hesitantly asked for a business plan, Marissa had laughed. "Brooke, it's me. We're family." I never saw that $5,000 again. The last time I went home was 3 weeks ago. It was the breaking point, though I did not know it then. I walked into the wall of noise that defined my mother's house. The air was thick with the smell of frying chicken, a heavy, greasy perfume that clings to your clothes. Underneath it was the high, sweet scent of baking apple pie, the comfort foods Lydia used to weaponize. The television was blaring a football game no one was watching. The announcer's voices a useless, angry roar. From the living room, Marissa's voice, amplified by her phone, tinny and demanding. "And if you use code Marissa10, you get 10% off these joggers. They are so buttery soft. You guys, so soft." I stood in the doorway for a full minute. My travel mug was in one hand, my heavy work bag in the other. Lydia was at the sink, her back to me, the rigid line of her shoulders telegraphing irritation before she had even seen me. "Hey, Mom. Hi, Marissa." Marissa waved vaguely toward the living room, her eyes locked on her screen, her mouth fixed in a bright, artificial smile for her followers. "Hey, kids are in the basement." Mom turned, wiping her hands on the perpetually damp towel slung over her shoulder. "Brooklyn, you're late. The chicken is almost done. Did you bring the pies?" "I brought 2, I said, holding up the bakery box. "Like you asked." I set them on the counter, next to a pile of mail I knew was mostly Marissa's boutique invoices. "And I have news. Really good news." This, I thought, would be it. This would be the time they listened. This was not a bonus. This was a life change. I got the promotion. I said it clearly, trying to project a confidence I did not feel in this room. The big one, I'm the new lead clinical specialist. They're moving me up to head the entire spinal rehab division for the new Colorado headquarters. I beamed, waiting for the impact. It's a huge raise, and I'm running the whole thing. The sound of the football commentators filled the space, the sizzle of the fryer, Marissa's sales pitch about buttery soft fabric, nothing else. I waited. 1 second, 2, the silence stretched, becoming heavy and solid. Lydia looked at Marissa, then back at the sink. Oh, that's nice, dear. She turned back to the chicken. Paperwork. Right. Well, good for you. You always liked your computers. Can you set the table? And Marissa needs help with a big shipment. It came in yesterday and she has been waiting for you to help her log it. Her back has been acting up. My chest tightened until it felt like a fist was squeezing my lungs. It's a management position. Mom, in Colorado. I'm moving. It's not paperwork. Okay, Lydia said, flapping a wet hand in my direction. We're proud. Now, the table. Your nephews are starving. Do not make this a big deal. Marissa finally muted her phone, swiveling in the recliner. Colorado. Like skiing Colorado. That is random. Who is going to help Mom with the weekends? And what about the kids? They are used to seeing you. I did not have an answer. The reality of my new life had not factored in their complete dependency on my old one. Well, whatever, Marissa sighed, turning back to her phone. Just do not forget you promised to help me with my inventory spreadsheets tonight. I set the table. Later that night, long after I had logged the inventory, Marissa watched, directing me and put the kids to bed. I checked our family group chat. The squad, Marissa had named it. I had texted them the news 2 days prior, when I signed the official offer. Got the promotion, heading the spinal division, moving to Colorado. Read by Lydia. Read by Marissa. Read by Dad. No replies. An hour after I had arrived at the house, a new message had popped up from Marissa. It was a picture of her 2 sons, mouths smeared with cinnamon. The caption, "Thank God for Aunt Brooklyn and her amazing pies saved the day. My pies, not my promotion, my utility. I ended up at the sink, long after everyone was asleep. The kitchen was finally quiet, dark save for the light over the stove. I was scrubbing the cast iron skillet, the one Lydia insisted could only be cleaned by hand, with salt. The kitchen was all polished steel, the industrial-grade refrigerator, the 6-burner stove. My reflection stared back at me, warped and tired. Brooklyn Hernandez, division head, hands raw, knuckles covered in someone else's chicken grease, smelling like old oil. I heard the classic defense again, the one I had heard my whole life, the one Lydia always used when I balked at another demand. She has the kids. Marissa, you know how hard that is. You need to help. Brooklyn is free. She is single. She does not have those responsibilities. It is easy for her. Easy for me. The weekend I missed my best friend's wedding shower to babysit because Marissa's sitter fell through. The $5,000 that vanished. The countless hours spent fixing, driving, cleaning, listening. I closed my eyes. I am smart. I am capable. I am a resource manager, a problem solver, and a skilled practitioner. But in this house, I was just resource, an infinite, rechargeable battery pack for their lives. My successes were not celebrated. They were assessed for their potential to benefit them. My failures were my own, but my victories were theirs to spend. The damp dish towel was still draped over my shoulder. It had been there all night, a cold, clammy weight. I looked at it in the reflection. It was a white flag. My white flag of surrender, waved before the battle even began. I had said, "It's fine." So many times my mouth tasted like metal. I had said, "No problem," until the words lost all meaning. A cold, sharp question hit me, so clearly I almost said it aloud. If I vanished tomorrow, who would notice first? My family, or the neighbor's dog who waits for me to jog by every morning? I knew the answer. It was the dog. I drove back to my apartment the next morning before anyone was awake. I left the second pie on the counter. I did not leave a note. When I got home, to my home, the quiet was profound. It did not feel empty. It felt clean. I walked into my home office, pulled out the signed promotion contract from my briefcase, the new salary, spelled out in clear numbers, the new title, the new responsibilities, the start date in Ravenport. My hand was shaking. But not from exhaustion. It was rage. A cold, clear, industrial G-force rage. I took out my phone. I did not open the group chat. I opened my camera. I flattened the contract on my desk, smoothing the creases. I took a clear, high-resolution photo of it. It was not for them. It was not for social media. It was for me. It was my proof of life, my evidence. This was real. I was real. Then, I opened my calendar. I went forward 3 weeks. I created a new event. The title, Contact Ravenport Movers. I added an alert. It was just a small tap on the glass screen, a tiny digital reminder, but it felt like throwing a main breaker. The lights in the old life went out, and in the dark, I could finally see. I knew I was drawing a boundary. It was not a line I could speak. Not yet. My voice had been trained to say, "It's fine, and I can do it." But my fingers could type, Ravenport. I spent the next 2 weeks in a quiet flurry. I did not tell them. I did not ask permission. I bought boxes. I started with the things they never saw: my textbooks, my professional awards, the files for my clinical trials. I started packing up my old life, sealing the boxes with the deafening screech of brown packing tape, a sound that, for the first time, felt like a beginning. Ravenport, Colorado, was not a place you ended up by accident. It was a destination, a place of sharp granite peaks and equally sharp, ambitious people. My new branch of Kestrel Biomotion was housed in a sleek building of glass and reclaimed wood that overlooked a river. It smelled like new carpet and industrial-strength coffee. My new life began here, in an office with a door that closed. I learned very quickly that in Ravenport, I was not Brooklyn the helper. I was Ms. Hernandez, the new lead specialist. My new colleagues were polite, brilliant, and deeply focused on their work. They knew me only by my clinical trial data, my published papers, and the new intake to rehab protocols I designed in my first week. I was efficient. I was a great systems mind. I was, for the first time in my adult life, a professional. No one asked me to watch their kids. No one asked me to pick up their dry cleaning. No one commented on my paperwork. They saw my results, and they respected my time. It was terrifying and wonderful. The move itself was the first test. The moving truck, a massive semi-trailer that seemed to take up the entire street, had arrived at 7 a.m, precisely on time. The crew, led by a man with a clipboard and a no-nonsense attitude, was efficiently wrapping my sofa when my phone rang, playing the specific, cloying ringtone I had assigned to my mother. I wiped sweat and box tape residue on my jeans and answered, "Hi, Mom?" "Brooklyn. Thank God. I need you to swing by." Her voice was already strained, the background noise of my nephew's cartoons audible. "Marissa has a last-minute vendor meeting, a really big one, she says, and I'm swamped with her inventory, and the boys are they're just bouncing off the walls. I can't handle them alone." I looked at the moving truck. I looked at the 3 men carrying my entire bedroom set down the stairs. "Mom, I can't. Not today." "What do you mean? You can't, Brooklyn. This is important. This is Marissa's business. You're just... What, packing? You can do that later. I just need you for, say, 3 or 4 hours." "Mom," I said, and my voice was flatter than I had ever heard it. "The truck is here. The moving truck. I am moving. Today. The day I told you I was moving." There was a pause, a heavy, airless silence that I knew well. It was the sound of her recalibrating, of her realizing a demand was not going to be met. "Well, that is just incredibly inconvenient." And she hung up. Not, "Good luck," not, "Drive safe," not, "We'll miss you." Just the click of a disconnected call, a judgment delivered via dial tone. I put the phone in my back pocket. The crew foreman shouted, "Sofa's on. What's next, boss?" "The desk," I said, pointing. "Let's get it all." I did not hear from her for the rest of the day. Not as I signed the final papers, not as I handed over my keys, not as I started the long cross-country drive. My father sent a text that just said, "Safe travels." I did not know if it was a wish or an order. I was halfway through Iowa, surrounded by a sea of cornfields and wind turbines, when my phone lit up again, this time, a text. From Lydia. "Marissa's meeting was a disaster because her head wasn't in it. She was so worried about the kids, and your father said your apartment was empty. What do you mean you're actually going to Colorado?" I read it at a gas station, the smell of diesel in the air. What do you mean you're actually going, as if my promotion, my contract, my entire career, was a whimsical suggestion I had made. As if I were a child who had threatened to run away to the circus, I typed back, "I told you I was moving. I'm in Iowa. I'll be in Ravenport on Wednesday." Her reply was instant. "This is the first I'm hearing of it." I put the phone back in the cup holder, started the car, and drove west. The first 3 weeks in Ravenport were a blur of setting up new systems, both at work and at home. My apartment was a 2-bedroom rental, a clean, modern box with a view of the mountains that made me feel small and brave all at once. My new salary, the one Lydia and Marissa had dismissed, was more than enough. It allowed me to furnish my new life without anxiety, and it allowed me to get Pilot. He was a rescue, a mix of something with long legs and a perpetually worried face. I found him at a local shelter on my second Saturday in town. He was skinny, quiet, and had been returned twice. When I knelt, he just leaned his head against my knee, a silent request for stability. "I get it," I whispered to him. We went home together. On my third Saturday, I woke up without an alarm. The sun was just hitting the peaks. I made coffee. Real, pour-over coffee. Not the instant sludge I used to gulp before the drive to my mother's. I sat on my small balcony. Pilot dozed at my feet. The air was cool and thin. I looked at my watch. 10:30 a.m. Back in my old life, I would already be 3 hours deep into my obligation Saturday. I would be at Home Depot, picking up light bulbs or mulch. I would be babysitting. My nephew's using my laptop as a coaster. I would be fixing Marissa's printer, or Lydia's Wi-Fi, or the running toilet in the guest bath. I would be available. Here, there was nothing. No demands, no emergencies, just the coffee, the dog, and the mountains. A feeling bloomed in my chest, a light, airy sensation I could not immediately name. It was not joy, not yet. It was peace, the profound, radical peace of an undefended border. A day that was entirely, completely my own. I found a coffee shop called The Grind, a local place that roasted its own beans and was filled with people writing code or planning mountain ascents. I found a running trail that followed the river. I found my new office, my new routine, my new life. And then, the old one came calling. It was my aunt's birthday. A text message appeared in the squad group chat, the one I had long since muted. It was from Marissa. "Aunt Linda's 60th this Saturday. Big party. Be at Mom's by 10 a.m. sharp for setup. Brooklyn, you're on balloon duty, and the big fruit platter. Don't get that weird melon again." I looked at the message. It was Tuesday. They had sent it as if I lived down the street, as if the last 4 weeks had not happened, as if my move was a temporary fiction. I did not reply. On Wednesday, Lydia texted me directly. "Did you see Marissa's text respond? I'm making a list." I did not reply. On Friday, my phone began to melt. First, a text from Marissa. "Brooklyn, seriously, where are you? Mom needs the fruit platter list. Are you getting the good grapes or not?" Then a call. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. From Lydia. Voicemail. Then my dad. Voicemail. Then the group chat started exploding. "Is Brooklyn coming? Has anyone heard from Brooklyn? This is so typical. Is she mad about something?" By Saturday morning, the day of the party, My phone was a digital siren. It buzzed on my nightstand with a frantic, angry energy. I picked it up. 12 missed calls. 28 new text messages. I was supposed to be running a 5K with some colleagues. Pilot was waiting by the door, his leash in his mouth. My phone rang again. Lydia. I stared at the screen. I felt the familiar pull. The tidal strength guilt. They're worried. I'm being cruel. It's just a party. It's family. But then I thought about the fruit platter, and the balloons, and the assumption. I silenced the ringer. I turned off vibrate. And for the first time in my life, I took my phone, I opened my bedroom drawer, and I placed it inside. Underneath a pile of sweaters, I closed the drawer. The silence was instant. I took Pilot on the trail. I ran my 5K. I got brunch with my new colleagues, who talked about clinical data and rock climbing. I went to the hardware store and bought a new, complicated-looking shelf. I spent the afternoon putting it together, just for the satisfaction of reading the instructions and doing it myself. At 9 o'clock that night, I finally opened the drawer. The screen lit up with a backlog of pure, uncut rage. You have ruined your aunt's birthday. Selfish. That's the only word for it. Mom is in tears. I hope you're happy. I had to cut up fruit and manage my children. My back is killing me. Dad is saying you've changed. He's right. You are too good for us now. Is that it, Miss Big Shot in Colorado? My hands were steady. I felt a strange, cold calm. I did not text. I called. Lydia picked up on the first ring. Her voice a sharp, practiced sob. Brooklyn, finally, after the day I've had. Your poor aunt was devastated. Devastated. You didn't even text. We had no fruit platter. I had to run out and get one from the store. And it had that weird melon. Marissa had to do everything, and you know her back. Mom, I said, cutting her off. The sound of my own clear voice startled us both. I'm calling to make sure you all got home safe from the party. Brooklyn, what is wrong with you? We were calling you all day. We thought you were dead in a ditch. No, I said. I was busy, and I don't live there anymore. I told you I moved. You did not, she shrieked, the victimhood dropping to reveal the anger beneath. You said something about a transfer, a computer thing. You did not say you were abandoning your family. This is the first I'm hearing of you actually leaving. I told you the day the moving truck was at my apartment, I said, my voice quiet. I told you when I got the job. I told you when I was in Iowa. You were just stressed. I didn't think you meant it, she cried. I just don't understand you. We were all so worried. Her voice suddenly shifted, the anger melting away, replaced by the warm, treacly tone of practiced manipulation, the sound that always preceded a major withdrawal. I'm just glad you're okay. We've all been so on edge. I waited. I knew what was coming. Look, Brooklyn, while I have you. She took a deep, shaky breath. You know your sister is struggling. That boutique. It's her dream. It really is. And with this new location, it's a lot. And, well, you got that big new job, that bonus you were talking about. Here it was, the real reason for the call. She just needs a little help. Honey, just a bridge loan, to get her through the season. Her new landlord is being just awful about the deposit. She just needs, 10, maybe $15,000. $15,000. You're making so much now. Brooklyn, you're a manager. It's just money to you. But to Marissa, it's her dream. I looked out my window. My apartment was dark, but the city of Ravenport glittered below, across the room. I could see the outline of the shelf I had built. It was level. It was sturdy. Mom, I said. Yes, honey. You'll help. I knew you would. You're a good... I pressed the red end icon. I hung up on my mother. I had not screamed. I had not cried. I had not negotiated. I had not promised. I had simply stopped. I held the phone in my hand, feeling the phantom buzz. For the first time, I chose myself. I chose the silence. I chose the shelf I built. I finally understood that true, Unconditional love had a different sound. It did not sound like, I need this. It sounded like, how are you? And no one, not once, had asked me that. I walked to my balcony and opened the sliding glass door. The mountain air, cold and smelling of pine, rushed in. It filled the room. It felt like my own lungs were expanding for the first time in 20 years, drawing a breath that was not smoggy with guilt and obligation. I walked back to my nightstand and picked up my phone. I went to my clock app. I set an alarm for 5:30 in the morning. I had a new running trail I wanted to try. It was time to go. 2 years went by. The silence from my family was total. After I hung up on my mother, after that $15,000 request evaporated into the dead air, the line was cut. No angry follow-ups, no guilt-trip voicemails, no texts from Marissa, nothing. It was as if, by declining to be their financial life raft, I had ceased to exist. I was no longer a resource, and therefore, I was no longer a daughter or a sister. I was just a vacancy. So I filled that vacancy. I filled it with the thin, sharp air of Ravenport. I filled it with kestrel biomotion. I poured every ounce of focus I used to spend anticipating their needs, managing their emotions, and cleaning their messes into my own life. I streamlined the new branch's intake protocols. I redesigned the patient data logging system, increasing our clinical efficiency by 30% in the first year. I was promoted. The lead clinical specialist title I had arrived with was formalized, and my work spoke for itself. 8 months after that, the regional director for the Western Territories retired. I applied, I interviewed, I got the job. Regional manager, Brooklyn Hernandez. My territory covered 4 states. My salary nearly doubled what it was when I left. The girl who used to scrub chicken grease off her mother's pans was now in charge of an 8-figure budget and a team of 40 clinicians. I stopped renting. I took my new salary, my meticulously saved down payment, and I bought a condo. It was a 2-bedroom unit on the 4th floor of a quiet building, a place with a wide, protected balcony and a floor-to-ceiling view of the Front Range. The mountains changed color every hour, every day. It was mine. The mortgage was in my name, and my name alone. I spent my weekends learning how to be domestic on my own terms. I installed floating shelves in the kitchen, and the whine of my power drill felt like a victory. I found an old, scarred oak table at a second-hand store, a heavy, solid thing with deep gouges in the surface. I spent a month stripping it, sanding it down, and applying coats of varnish until the grain shone like honey. Pilot, now a confident and sleek dog, would sleep under it while I worked, and I found Evan, or rather, Pilot found him. We were at the sprawling dog park by the creek, a place Pilot loved. He, usually so reserved, trotted right up to a tall man throwing a ball for a happy, clumsy golden retriever. The man laughed, and the sound was easy. His name was Evan Brooks. We talked about dogs. Then, over coffee a few days later, we talked about work. It turned as if he was in the same, very niche, field. He was the founder and chief engineer of Aurelia Rehabilitation Systems, a smaller, innovative startup focused on neural interfaces for prosthetics. He was brilliant, he was driven, and he was kind. He listened to me talk about my work with an understanding I had never experienced. He never once asked me what I could do for him. He only asked how I was doing, what I was thinking. We started dating. Then, with an ease that felt as natural as breathing, we fell in love. My life was full. My lungs had expanded. The only exception to the 2-year silence was Aunt Madison. She was my mother's younger sister, the family observer, the one who had always sent me a separate, quiet check for $10 on my birthday. She had sent me a Christmas card that first year. "Thinking of you, Brooke," was all it said. She texted me when she saw a news story about a blizzard in Colorado. She never asked for anything. When she had a business conference in Denver, she texted me, "Brooklyn, I know you're incredibly busy, but I'll have a rental car. I'd love, only if you have time, to drive up to Ravenport and see you. My treat for dinner." I was hesitant. It felt like a probe from the old world. But this was Madison, the one person who had never used me as a resource. I said yes. Evan, with that quiet understanding I loved, offered to take Pilot for a long hike. "You should have your space," he said. "Just you and her." Madison walked into my condo and just stopped. She stood in the entryway, looking at the shelves I had built, now full of books. She looked at the honey gold table. She looked at the way the afternoon sun was hitting the mountains, turning the granite peaks a pale rose. "Oh, Brooklyn," she said, and her voice was soft, almost reverent. "Your home. It's so warm, and it's so orderly." That one word orderly struck me. It was the exact opposite of the constant, greasy chaos of my mother's kitchen. We had tea. She talked about her job in marketing. She skillfully, pointedly, avoided talking about Lydia or Marissa. She asked me about my work, and when I told her about being regional manager, her eyes lit up with genuine pride. As she was leaving, she paused by the living room window, her phone in her hand. "Brooke, this is going to sound silly, but do you mind if I take a picture of this corner, the light on your bookshelves and that table? It's just perfect. I'm trying to redo my own living room, and this is so much inspiration." It felt so good to be seen, to have my taste, my home, validated. "Of course. Aunt Mad? Go ahead." She snapped a photo. She hugged me at the door. A real, warm hug that did not feel like a prelude to a request. "I'm so proud of you. Brooklyn, really, you've built something real here." She must have posted it from her hotel room in Denver that night. My phone, usually so quiet in the evenings, buzzed on the nightstand. It was an Instagram notification. Aunt Madison had tagged me in a post. I opened it. The photo was beautiful. She was a good photographer. It was my living room, the varnished table in the foreground, my neat bookshelves, and the mountain view glowing behind it. The caption, "Spending an amazing afternoon with my brilliant niece, Brooklyn Hernandez, in her stunning new home. So proud of all she's accomplished in Colorado." The dam broke. Within 20 minutes, the comments exploded. Cousins I had not heard from in 5 years. Old neighbors, my father. "Wow, is that Ravenport? What neighborhood? That furniture looks expensive." "Go. Brooke. Brooklyn. Call your uncle. We haven't heard from you. Look at that view. That must have cost a fortune. What's the mortgage on a place like that? Is that real quartz on the counters?" And then the one I had been waiting for, the one that made my stomach clench, my mother, Lydia, my beautiful, brilliant daughter. "We are just bursting with pride. Can't wait to see it in person. We miss you so much." The lie was so blatant, so public. It took my breath away, bursting with pride, as if the last 2 years of hostile, demanding silence had never happened, as if she had not tried to extract $15,000 from me. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text message from Aunt Madison. "Oh, Brooklyn, I'm so sorry. I think I made a mistake." Below it, she had forwarded screenshots. Screenshots from the squad group chat, the one I had left 2 years ago. "Marissa, did you see Madison's post? A 2-bedroom condo? Look at those countertops. That is quartz. She's loaded, Lydia. She must be making a fortune, that regional manager job. She's probably sitting on a huge bonus, and she never sent a dime." Marissa. "Meanwhile, I'm about to lose my car. The lease is up, and they won't extend my credit. She's sitting on quartz countertops, and I'm drowning." Lydia. "It's time to mobilize. She needs to be reminded what family means. We need to go. We need to go and remind her. She needs to support us." Marissa. "She'll just hang up on you again, or ignore us." Lydia. "She can't hang up if we're on her doorstep." My blood did not run cold. It felt like it evaporated. She needs to support us. Not, "We miss her." Not, "We're proud." They were mobilizing. Right on cue. A new text message appeared at the very top of my screen. From Lydia, text number 1. "Brooklyn honey, We've missed you so much. It's been too long. I stared at it. The bait. I did not reply. A minute passed. Then, the follow-up. Text number 2. Great news. Your father found an amazing deal on flights. The whole family is coming to visit. We land tomorrow at 12 noon. We can't wait to see the new place. It'll be just like old times. Just like old times. The 4 most terrifying words in the English language. My hands were perfectly steady. I did not panic. I closed the screenshots. I opened my call log. I dialed Evan. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm. Hey, you? How was your evening? She was fine, I said, my voice low and flat. Aunt Madison was fine, but she just triggered an avalanche. Evan, they're coming. The whole family. Tomorrow. I explained the texts. I explained the screenshots. I did not cry. My voice did not waver. I was a regional manager. I handled logistics for 4 states. This was just another, more hostile, logistical problem. Evan was silent for a moment. His voice, when it came, was solid granite. Okay, what's your play? Do you want to come to my place? We can leave a note on the door. No, I said, looking at my table. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I built this. I'm not letting them chase me out of my own home. All right then, he said, but be careful. Brooke, people don't show up after 2 years of silence just for a hug. They're not coming to see your condo. They're coming to see its equity. They're coming to liquidate you. He was right. This was not a visit. This was a raid. This time, I said, as much to myself as to him. This time, I set the rules. I'll be on standby, he said. Call me, day or night. I hung up. I looked at my beautiful, orderly, warm condo. They were coming to turn it into chaos, to turn it back into a resource pool. Not this time. I spent the next 2 hours preparing. I did not bake cookies. I did not buy snacks. I did not change the guest room sheets. I went to my living room, took the delicate hand-blown glass vase Evan had bought me, and put it in the back of my closet. I took the framed photo of Pilot and me from our first hike and put it in my bedroom. I took every breakable, personal, and vulnerable thing, and I secured it. Then I went to my desk. I opened the bottom file drawer. I pulled out the thick accordion folder that contained my condo closing documents, my mortgage statements, the deed, with my name on it, proof of ownership, proof of my financial liability. I went to my printer and I made copies. I put them in a simple, official-looking manila folder and placed it on the coffee table. I went to the kitchen. I made Pilot his dinner. I filled his water bowl. I opened my bedroom door. Come on, bud. You're sleeping in here tonight. Things might get loud. He trotted in, confused but obedient. I closed the door, muffling the sound of his confused whine. I stood in my living room, the room Madison had called warm. I looked at the honey gold table I had rebuilt with my own hands. I turned on the warm, yellow lamps in the corner. Just as the last bit of sun dipped behind the mountains, the stage was set. The audience was, apparently, already on a plane. The doorbell rang at 12:30, 30 minutes late, just enough to imply they were casual, breezy, not desperate. I opened it. For a second, no one spoke. They were travelers out of time, ghosts from a life I had sealed in packing tape. Lydia surged forward first. Brooklyn. My baby. She wrapped her arms around me in a hug that was less affection, more acquisition. It was a boa constrictor's hug, tight and proprietary, her chin digging into my shoulder as she peered past me, into the condo. Her perfume was the same, too sweet, too loud. Hi, Mom, I said, not hugging back, just enduring the pressure. Brooke, my father, shifting awkwardly on the welcome mat. He held up a white bakery box, a peace offering that was also a misfire. Brought your favorite apple crumb. I looked at the label. It was almond twist. I had never liked almond. Thanks, Dad. Come in. Marissa pushed past him, her phone already in her hand, but not recording. She was scanning. Her eyes darted from the reclaimed wood floors, to the quartz countertops, to the stainless steel appliances. Her expression was a mix of envy and calculation. "Wow," she said, her voice flat. "This is a lot." And behind them, the vanguard. My two nephews, now older, louder. They shot past me like they were storming a beach. "TV," the older one yelled, grabbing my remote. "Where's the Wi-Fi password?" the younger one demanded, already opening the fridge. "Hey," I said, my voice quiet but firm. It cut through the manufactured joy. "Welcome to my home. The rules here are different. We don't run, and we don't shout." The boys froze, looking to Marissa. Marissa rolled her eyes, a gesture so practiced it was almost elegant. "Oh, relax. Brooklyn. God, they're just kids. Let them play. It's what they do." She dropped her oversized designer knockoff purse onto my new sofa. "They can play," I said, my voice still soft, still unyielding. "In here," I pointed to the two comfortable armchairs by the window. "I have books. They can sit and read, or they can sit, but they will not be running in my home." Marissa's mouth opened, then snapped shut. She was not used to me setting a rule that was not for her benefit. Lydia clapped her hands together, the sound sharp and false. "Well, this is just beautiful, all of it. We're so proud. Brooklyn, so proud." She ran a hand along the countertop, a jeweler appraising a stone. "So," Marissa said, flopping into the chair opposite the sofa. She did not wait to be invited. "This must have set you back. What's the down payment on a place like this?" "Like 20%? "I'm glad you all made it here safely," I said. Ignoring the question, I remained standing. I did not offer coffee. I did not offer to take their coats. I was not a host. I was a gatekeeper. My father, bless him, tried. "It's really something. Brooke, the mountains. You can see them right from here. I'm glad you like the view." Dad, the younger nephew, bored with the fridge, made a dash for the hallway, toward my bedroom. "This way." "Ah," I said, not moving, but my voice sharpened by 1 degree. "That's my private space. The living room is for guests. Please, come sit down." The boy stopped, stunned by the invisible wall. Marissa sighed, her voice dripping with martyrdom. "Can you please just let them be? They've been on a plane for 4 hours. They're just exploring. You're making them nervous." She motioned to the cheap ceramic vase I'd left on the coffee table as a decoy. "It's just stuff. It's not a museum." As if on cue, the older boy, trying to get the remote to work, knocked the vase. It tipped, water splashing onto the manila folder I had left there. "Oh, for Zach," Marissa snapped. Before she could move, I was there. I picked up the vase. I took a cloth from the kitchen. I calmly, methodically, wiped the water off the folder, which was waterproof, and the table. My movements were slow. I said nothing. My silence was louder than her son's clumsiness. "See," Marissa said, her voice defensive. "No big deal. It's just water." I put the vase on the kitchen counter, out of reach. I turned back to them. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. The warm yellow light of the lamps suddenly felt like an interrogation room. "Okay," I said. "You're here. You've seen the condo. The financial audit has begun. How much was the down payment? What's the mortgage?" I looked directly at Marissa. "You're appraising the inventory." "Brooklyn," Lydia gasped, clutching her pearls, though she was not wearing any. "That is so rude. We're your family. We came all this way because we missed you." "You've missed me for 2 years," I asked, my voice genuinely curious. "You missed me so much that when I called you, you asked me for $15,000 and then never spoke to me again when I hung up. You missed me when I got my first promotion. When I bought this place, you missed me so much that you didn't call, not once. On my birthday or Thanksgiving, you missed me on the day of Aunt Linda's party. when I was selfish for not providing a fruit platter. The room was silent. Even the kids had stopped moving. That's a very specific kind of missing, Mom. It sounds a lot like assessing assets. Lydia's face, which had been stretched in a smile of false pride, crumpled. The mask fell, and the familiar, manipulative victimhood took its place. Her eyes welled with tears. This was her ace. "Oh, Brooklyn," she whispered, her voice breaking perfectly. "How can you be so cold after everything? We do miss you. But yes, we are also here because there is an important family matter." She looked at Marissa. It was the cue. Marissa took a deep, shuddering breath. She leaned forward, her face a mask of practiced tragedy. "Brooke, I'm in trouble. Real trouble." Here it was. The reason for the flight. The purpose of the invasion. "My boutique. I finally did it. I got a storefront. 8 months ago," I said. "I saw the post." "It's been hard," she sniffed. The build-out was more than they quoted, the lease. It's a triple net. I didn't understand what that meant. The overhead. I haven't been paying myself. I've been putting it all back in. And the landlord, he's threatening to evict. "How much?" I asked. I was not her sister. I was a manager reviewing a bad balance sheet. I'm about $42,000 in debt," she whispered, as if the number was a sacred, terrible secret. "The lease, the build-out, the back-due utilities. They're going to take everything, Brooke. They're going to sue me. They're going to come after the house." "The house?" I said, confused. "Your house?" "No," Lydia said, her voice sharp. "My house, your father's and my house. We co-signed the lease to help her get it." The air left the room. They had leveraged their own home for her fast fashion drop-shipping business. "And now," Lydia continued, standing up and walking toward me, her hands clasped as if in prayer, "we need your help. You are the only one who can help us." I stood my ground. "Help how?" "The bank, they won't give us a loan," Lydia said, her voice dropping. "Not with our house as collateral for her lease. But you have this." She waved her hand around the room. "You have equity. You have a good job. You're stable." And then she delivered the solution, the one they had clearly rehearsed on the 4-hour flight. "Brooklyn, honey, we have a plan. It's so simple. All you have to do is sell this condo." I stared at her. "Just sell it," she said, her voice brightening, as if it was the most brilliant, obvious idea in the world. "You don't need all this space. It's just you and the dog, and you have that lovely boyfriend, Evan. Madison said he's a founder, that he has his own company. You can just move in with him. He must have a nice place. You'd save on rent, and you'd have the equity. You could pay off Marissa's debt, save our house, and you'd still have plenty left over." She beamed at me. She had just solved all our problems. She had just taken my entire life, my 2 years of work, my sanctuary, my achievement, and liquidated it, turned it into a solution for their problem. I did not speak. I just looked at her, and then a sound escaped my lips. It started low, a rumble in my chest, and then it came out. I laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was a dry, scraping, rusty nail sound. It was the laugh of someone who has just heard the most profoundly, darkly, cosmically absurd joke in the world. "Sell it," I repeated, the laugh dying in my throat. "Sell my home, so I can pay for her boutique. It's my dream," Marissa shrieked, jumping up. "It's not just a boutique, it's my life. You have all this stuff, and you've never had to fight for anything. It was all just given to you." "Given to me," I said, and my voice was so cold, so quiet. It cut through her hysteria instantly. "Given to me." I walked over to the coffee table and tapped the manila folder, the one I had dried. "I was given the promotion I told you about, the one you ignored," I asked. I was given the transfer to Colorado. The one you called paperwork, I was given the regional manager title. I was given the salary I worked 12-hour days for. I was given the mortgage that I qualified for, by myself, with my credit, which I built. I listed the moments, the milestones. The silence when I announced the promotion, the silence when I moved, the silence on my birthdays, the silence for 2 solid years, until Aunt Madison posted a picture of my assets. "You are not here because you missed me," I said. "You are here because you saw her post, and you ran my credit report in your heads. You are here to collect. You are here to do what you have always done, treat me not as a person, but as a resource, an emergency fund, a weekend helper, a solution." I walked past them. I walked to my front door. I opened it. The hallway of the quiet, orderly building was visible. "Brooklyn, what are you doing?" Lydia gasped. "I am setting a boundary," I said. "I am inviting you to leave my home." My hand was on the doorknob. It was not shaking. "Leave," my father said, his voice horrified. He finally spoke. But we just got here. We flew all this way." I looked at him, and for the first time, I felt not pity, but clarity. "I didn't invite you." "Brooklyn, you can't be serious," Lydia cried, her face turning red. "We're your family. We are in a crisis." "You are," I agreed. "This is a crisis of your own making, and you will not be solving it by liquidating my life. You will not be solving it with my money, and you will not be solving it in my home." "So that's it," Marissa screamed, her face ugly with rage. "You're just choosing money over your own family." I looked at her. I looked at the sister who saw my life as a checkout line. I looked at the mother who saw my home as a piggy bank. "No, Marissa," I said. "I am choosing to respect myself. You should try it, but you will not be doing it here." I held the door open. The silence was absolute. The kids looked terrified. My father looked ashamed. Lydia and Marissa just looked, beaten, slowly, in a stunned, silent procession. They gathered their things, the purse, the kids. My father picked up the white bakery box with the wrong pie. He paused at the door, as if to say something, but he just shook his head and walked out. Lydia was last. She stood in the doorway, her face a ruin of failed manipulation. "You will regret this, Brooklyn, one day. You will need your family, and we will not be here." "I have needed a family for 20 years, I said. "Where have you been?" I closed the door in her face. I heard her gasp on the other side. I turned the deadbolt. The click was final. And then, as I had predicted, the assault began. My phone, which was on the kitchen counter, lit up. A text message, then another, then another. The buzzing sound was like a trapped, angry insect, a hailstorm of notifications, a digital downpour of rage, guilt, and condemnation. I walked over to the phone. I did not read the messages. I just silenced it. I stood in the middle of my living room, my home, my orderly, warm, quiet home. They were gone. They had left behind nothing but the faint, cloying, artificial almond smell of the pie I had never liked. The silence, as it turned out, was just them reloading. After the hailstorm of texts, which I'd muted but not deleted, came the email. It arrived at 2 a.m, a time for desperation and bad decisions. It was from Marissa. The subject line was just, "Please." It was a novel, a scrolling, 1,000-word epic of financial illiteracy and weaponized victimhood. It was a masterpiece of blame-shifting. The landlord was a vulture. The customers were too cheap. The build-out contractor had scammed her. The debt was not just $42,000. That was just the lease. There was the credit card debt, stacked on 3 different cards, all maxed out, another $20,000. There was the loan from the boutique vendor fund, another $15,000. They were not just at risk of losing the house, they were at risk of total, unfiltered ruin. The email ended with a paragraph that dripped with practiced misery. Mom and Dad are destroyed. They are going to lose the house they built, the house we grew up in, and you are choosing quartz countertops. You are choosing your new, perfect life over the people who raised you. I hope you and your new money boyfriend are very happy. We will be homeless. This is on you. 2 years ago, this email would have shattered me. I would have been on the phone, transferring funds, applying for loans in my own name, setting myself on fire to keep them warm. I read it twice. My pulse did not quicken. My hands did not shake. I felt cold. Because one detail was wrong. One detail was too perfect. We will be homeless. This is on you. If Mom and Dad co-signed a commercial lease, that was bad. But it was a civil matter. It would take months, even years, to get to the point of seizing a primary residence. Marissa was not just desperate. She was pushing a specific, accelerated timeline. She was applying pressure. And if I was supposed to be the solution, why was my name not on that email? Not once. It was not. Brooklyn, we need your signature. It was. We need your money. I did not reply. Instead, I opened a new browser tab. I logged into my high-yield savings account, the one that held my down payment, now refilled and healthy. I transferred $1,000 to my checking. Then I paid for all 3 major credit reports, plus the most comprehensive public filing search money could buy. I was a regional manager. I knew how to do due diligence. The reports came back within an hour. I read them, line by line, my morning coffee growing cold beside me. My credit was pristine. 80/25. Student loans? Paid off. Car? Paid off. My new, solitary mortgage. A single credit card I paid in full every month, and nothing else. There was no hard inquiry from a commercial lender, no co-signature on a business lease, no joint credit line with Marissa. My name was clean. I should have felt relief. I felt a spike of ice-cold dread. Marissa had said they were coming after everything. Why the panic, yeah? The $42,000 number if my name was not on the lease. I was not legally liable. I went to the public filing search. I searched for Marissa's Closet LLC. Nothing. Marissa Hernandez. Nothing. Lydia Hernandez. Nothing. She had not even registered a business name. She was running a storefront on a handshake and a personal guarantee, and she had dragged our parents into it. This was not a business in trouble. This was a personal black hole, and I was still not attached. I reread Marissa's email. You are the only one who can help us. How? My phone buzzed. A routine notification from the credit monitoring service I had signed up for when I bought the condo. A hard inquiry was added to your TransUnion file. I clicked the link. It was not Kestrel Biomotion. It was not my mortgage lender. It was a bank I had never heard of, Central Valley Regional Bank, a small, local institution back in my home state. The inquiry was dated 8 months ago, the exact time Marissa had opened her storefront. I sat back. They had not just asked for my credit, they had run it. I picked up my phone. I did not call my mother. I called the Central Valley Regional Bank. I used my regional manager voice, the one that was pleasant, efficient, and expected immediate answers. Hello? This is Brooklyn Hernandez. I'm calling to verify some information on my credit file. I see an inquiry from your institution 8 months ago, and I'm just cleaning up my records. Can you tell me what that was regarding? The loan officer was confused. Hernandez. Just a moment. I heard typing. Oh, yes, Ms. Hernandez. I see you here. You're listed as a personal guarantor on a commercial loan for, Marissa's Closet. Loan number 7721. My blood did not just run cold. It stopped. A guarantor. I don't recall that. Could you possibly send me a copy of that guarantee for my records? There seems to be a mix-up. A mix-up, ma'am. We've been trying to reach you. The loan is in default. We've sent 2 letters to your, address on file. What address is that? He read my mother's address, the one I had not lived at in 6 years. That is an old address, I said, my voice dangerously calm. There is definitely a mix-up. Please, email me a PDF of the guarantee document you have on file. I need to see the signature. Of course. Verifying your email. I gave him my work email. 10 minutes later, the PDF landed in my inbox. I opened it. It was a standard 3-page guarantee document, and on the third page, a signature. Brooklyn A. Hernandez. It was my signature. It was a near-perfect forgery. My stomach turned over. I felt physically ill. This was not a plea for help. This was a crime. I stared at it, my mind racing, cataloging. The ink. It was blue. A thick, smudgy, ballpoint blue. I have never, in my adult life, signed a legal document in blue ink. I am a 0.5 millimeter black gel pen woman. It is a thing. My signature, my control, the date. 8 months ago. I swiveled to my work computer. I opened my Kestrel Biomotion Outlook calendar. I went back 8 months. There it was. Keynote address, Midwest Rehabilitation Summit, Chicago, IL. I was not just out of the office. I was in another state. I cross-referenced my expense reports. United Airlines, Flight 722, a hotel receipt from the Chicago Marriott, a credit card charge from Gibson's Bar Steakhouse. I had an airtight alibi, time-stamped by a 24-ounce T-bone. She had forged my name. She had faked my signature on a $42,000 loan guarantee, plus interest, and had sent all the default notices to our mother's house. They had not come to my condo to ask for my help. They had come to collect on the debt they had already fraudulently assigned to me. They were staging a scene, a little play, to pressure me into voluntarily selling my condo to cover the very loan they had forged my name on. This changed everything. I knew my next call, Sarah Jensen. We had been roommates in college, 2 scholarship kids trying to make it. I'd gone into medical tech. She'd gone into banking. She was now a VP of risk management at Ravenport Community Bank. I called her personal cell. Sarah, it's Brooklyn. I have a very strange, very hypothetical question, I explained. I did not use names. I said, a family member, I said. A document that just feels wrong. I told her about the pen. I told her about the alibi. Brooke, that's not wrong, she said, her voice dropping the friendly tone and adopting the risk manager one. That's felony bank fraud. Go to the police. I can't, not yet, I said. It's my family. I need to be sure. I have the PDF. Is there any way to tell anything from a scan? Metadata. Anything. There was a long pause. Email it to me, she said. To my personal address. Do not email it to my work. I'll look at it tonight. And Brooklyn. Do not talk to them. Do not text them back. Do not acknowledge anything. You are now in a legal investigation. Act like it. I sent the file. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. I ran a 3-hour regional budget meeting, approved 2 new clinical trials, and onboarded a new hire, all with the word guarantor screaming in my head. My phone rang at 7 p.m. Sarah. Okay, I'm not a forensic expert, but I didn't have to be. What did you find? This isn't hypothetical, is it? This is your sister. I said nothing. The PDF you sent me? The metadata is a goldmine. The created timestamp is from a Canon scanner printer combo. The last modified timestamp is from an Adobe Acrobat Pro account. The IP address that account was logged into when it modified the file. I ran a public trace. It's a residential IP from your home city. It's your mom's house, isn't it? I closed my eyes. Yes. It gets worse. Brooke, the document was notarized. I looked up the notary public. His name is on the stamp. His commission in that state expired 6 months before the date on this document. And I have a friend at a title company who hates this guy. He's known for flexible work. His webcam log for that day. The day he supposedly watched you sign this, it's 40 minutes of a ceiling fan, and then 2 hours of a very blurry, very dusty ficus tree blocking the lens. He notarized a plant. She had not just forged my name. It was a conspiracy. Marissa, my mother, and a notary with an expired license and a houseplant. Brooklyn, Sarah said, her voice soft now. This is not a family problem. This is a criminal enterprise. You need a lawyer, not tomorrow, tonight. I found Naomi Price online. Price Legal Aggressive Representation for Fraud Forgery. She had a 5-star rating and a photo that looked like she ate bad contracts for breakfast. I paid the emergency consultation fee. I was in her sleek, downtown office at 8 a.m. the next morning. My laptop open, the evidence laid out. Naomi Price was small, sharp, and wore a bright red suit. She listened for 10 minutes, her face impassive. She reviewed my travel receipts, the metadata report Sarah had unofficially typed up, and the PDF of the signature. She finally looked up, a thin, dangerous smile on her face. Congratulations, Ms. Hernandez. This is what we in the business call a slam dunk. It's a clean-cut criminal forgery. We can have this loan nullified, and the bank's fraud department will likely press charges against your sister and mother within a week. We can be in front of a judge by Friday. I should have felt victorious. I just felt tired. Press charges against my mother. Naomi leaned back. That is the clean and simple route. But this is a family matter, and family, in my experience, is neither. You have two options. One, we go nuclear. We blow it all up. You are legally vindicated, and your family is, well, probably in jail. Two, we use this as the leverage it is. You hold all the cards. Your sister and mother think they're just pushing you for money. They have no idea you know you're holding a fistful of felonies. What's option 2? I asked. Option 2 is strategic, she said. You don't confront. You don't waive this evidence. You let them talk. You set a meeting. You get them to tell their story, their lies, their pressure campaign, and you do it with a witness. You get them to admit, on the record, what they need. You get them to tell you about the debt. You guide them. You let them dig their own grave. You control the narrative. Then, when they have no more lies to tell, you introduce me. It's not about the money, it's about the consequences. Get them to tell the story themselves, I repeated. Exactly, Naomi said, standing up. Go live your life. Wait for them to contact you again. They will. They're desperate. And when they do, you set the meeting. My advice? Don't look like a victim. Don't act angry. Just act. Disappointed. It's so much more effective. I left her office. The sun was bright. The world was still spinning. I did not feel like a regional manager. I did not feel like a daughter. I felt like a variable in a very complex, very ugly equation. That night, I put on my other uniform, the black polo shirt, the non-slip shoes, the dark blue apron. I drove to the Silver Fork Diner, the small, 24-hour place on the edge of town. I had picked up the shift 2 months after I arrived in Ravenport. Evan thought I was nuts. What do you make? And you want to make, what, $9 an hour? It was not about the money. Kestrel Biomotion was my head. Aurelia was my heart. But the Silver Fork, this was my hands. It was real. The problems were simple. A cup was empty. You filled it. A table was dirty. You wiped it. A person was hungry. You fed them. The stakes were a $6 tip, not a $42,000 felony. It was the one place my old life, my helper life, could be redeemed. I was not a resource. I was just a waitress. I tucked the manila folder with Naomi's card and a copy of the forged guarantee into my bag, and I put my bag in my locker. The shift was slow. A Tuesday, a few truckers, a couple of college kids. The big clock on the wall ticked, each second a heavy thud. 10 p.m., 11 p.m. The adrenaline from Naomi's office had long since faded, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. Endurance. This is what it felt like. You just kept wiping the same counter, refilling the same sugar caddies. At 11:30, the bell over the diner door chimed. I looked up from the coffee machine. An old man stood there. He was tall, thin, and wore a heavy wool coat. Despite the mild night, he looked lost, but not confused. He looked at me, just a long, quiet, assessing look. Just one, I asked, grabbing a menu. Just one? He said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. He walked past the booths and sat at the counter, right in my section. What can I get for you? I asked, sliding a glass of water toward him. He did not look at the menu. He just smiled, a small, sad smile. I'll have a slice of the apple pie, warmed, and a black coffee. I paused. Got it. Coming right up. I turned, got the pie, put it in the microwave for 20 seconds. I poured the coffee. I set them both in front of him. He looked at the pie, then at me. Just like your graduation day, he said. Quiet. I froze. My hand, which was holding the coffee pot, stopped midair. What did you say? Your college graduation, he said, still smiling. He picked up his fork. You were sitting alone at a table in the back of the reception. Everyone else was with their families. Your mother and sister were in a fight. I remember, about a dress. You looked so tired. You hadn't eaten a thing. So you went and got a slice of apple pie and a black coffee. You ate it standing up, by the exit. My blood was gone. There was just ice. I stared at him. I had never seen this man before in my life. How do you know that... How did you know that... My voice was barely a whisper. The coffee pot felt like it weighed 50 pounds. I was there, the old man said simply. He took a bite of the pie. My name is Elliot Thorne. The name meant nothing. A polite, Anglo-Saxon name. Okay, Elliot, is there anything else I can get you? I am your grandfather, he said. The coffee pot didn't waver. I am a regional manager of a 4-state territory, and I moonlight as a diner waitress. My hands do not shake, but the world tilted. I don't have a grandfather, I said, my voice flat. I'm Brooklyn Hernandez. My father is Victor Hernandez. His parents are... They're not in the picture. They are not, he agreed, taking another measured bite. Or rather, I am not your father. Victor Hernandez. He dropped my name. Thorne, at your mother's insistence, before you were born. It was a condition of their marriage. Lydia did not want him associated with me. I stared at him. His eyes were my eyes. That was the first thing that hit me. Not the color, but the expression. The same tired, assessing, analytical gaze I saw in my own mirror. I don't understand. He reached into the pocket of his heavy wool coat. He did not pull out a wallet. He pulled out a long, slim, black lacquer box. He set it on the counter, between the pie plate and the sugar caddies. He slid it toward me. This was your graduation present, he said. The one from college? The one you just remembered? I opened the box. Inside, on a bed of black velvet, was a fountain pen. It was impossibly heavy, made of gleaming black resin and platinum. It was not flashy. It was just substantial. I picked it up. My initials were engraved on the cap, just below the clip, and below them, his, B, Hernandez, E, Thorne. It was returned, he said, his voice soft. The package was sent back from your mother's house, unopened. Return to sender, addressee unknown. I ran my thumb over the engraving. B, Hernandez, E, Thorne, a bridge, built and then dynamited by Lydia. Why? I asked. It was the only word I had. Why are you here in Ravenport, in this diner at midnight? I am here, he said. Because you are... He gestured around the empty diner. I have lived in Ravenport for 10 years. I retired here. Retired from what? Aurelia Rehabilitation Systems, he said. The blood, the ice, the whatever was in my veins. It all evaporated. Aurelia, I whispered. That's Evan's company. Elliot Thorne smiled. The first genuine, warm expression I'd seen. Evan Brooks, a brilliant mind, the best engineer I ever met. He is the founder of the current company, The Face. I was the founder of the original company, the one I started in my garage 30 years ago. I provided his seed money. I gave him the patents. He made it better. I am just a very, very silent partner now. He is a good man. Brooklyn, he respects my privacy, as I respect his vision. I sank onto the stool on my side of the counter. My legs were gone. My boyfriend's mentor, his silent benefactor, was my grandfather. But why didn't you— Lydia, he said, and the name was an answer. The rift. It was old. It was about money. She saw your father as an escape from her own family. She saw me as a bank when I refused to fund her projects, her vanities. She saw me as a roadblock. She convinced Victor that I was toxic, that my influence was a poison. When I refused to buy them a house, she cut me off. When you were born, she made the cut permanent. She forbade my name. She raised you to be Hernandez, to be hers, to be a resource. He knew the word. How long have you known who I was? I've known where you were your entire life, Brooklyn, he said. I've watched from a distance. I saw you join Kestrel. I saw your promotions. I saw you transfer to Ravenport, into my own backyard. And I wondered what kind of person you had become. Was Lydia's influence total? Were you like them? So you came here. I came here, he confirmed. I've been a regular for 6 months. You've served me coffee, Brooklyn, about a dozen times. You just never looked. You were professional. You were clean. You were efficient. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. But I watched. I saw you, the regional manager, buy dinner for a trucker whose card was declined. I saw you stay 30 minutes past your shift to let an old woman finish her tea because she didn't want to go home to an empty house. And I saw you, with your professional salary, scrubbing grout on the backsplash at 1 a.m. because you saw a spot. A person who chooses to work the night shift in a diner, not for the money, but because they like the feel of honest work, because they like to hear the world breathe when it's quiet. That person is rare. That person is a thorn. A single tear cut a hot track down my cheek. I wiped it away with the back of my hand, angry. And then, he said, his voice hardening, I saw the public filings. I snapped my head up. You saw it. I am a very silent partner, Brooklyn, but I am not a stupid one. I keep track of things that interest me, and fraud interests me. I saw a commercial loan guarantee, filed with Central Valley Regional Bank, for $42,000, plus interest. I saw your name, Brooklyn Hernandez, as the sole guarantor. I saw the date, and because I am your grandfather, I knew you were in Chicago giving a keynote. I knew it was a forgery, and I knew it was Marissa, with Lydia's blessing. He reached into his coat again, pulling out a different folder, a slim, leather-bound one. I am not a vengeful man, Brooklyn, but I am a man who believes in consequences. Your mother wanted me out of your life. She succeeded, but she did not succeed in severing you from your inheritance. Not the money, the ethics. He slid the folder open. It was a single document. The Thorne Family Trust. It's very large, but that is unimportant. What is important is this. He pointed to a single clause. Section 4, the ethical heir. My trust, he explained, is not built on blood. It is built on character. It has one, very specific, very ironclad provision. I call it the fuse clause. The fuse clause, I repeated. It states, he read, his voice clear and precise in the quiet diner, that if any listed beneficiary and your father, and by extension your mother and sister, are listed beneficiaries is found to be using financial, emotional, or legal coercion to willfully exploit or defraud another family member, the fuse is triggered. It immediately freezes all assets, stipends, and support flowing to the offending party, and it automatically initiates a full civil investigation run by my attorneys. He looked up at me. The firm I retain, they are not as gentle as I am. They are, in fact, pit bulls. I just stared. A legal, financial, ethical weapon, one that could end this. I have a lawyer, I said, my voice weak. Naomi Price, she said it was a slam dunk. She said, criminal charges. You don't want to press criminal charges, he said. It was not a question. You don't want to send your mother to prison. You don't want to ruin your father, who is a weak man, but not an evil one. You just want it to stop. Yes, I whispered. I just want it to stop. I want my life back. I want my name back. Good, Elliot said. Justice is not a knife. Brooklyn, it is not meant to chop and sever. It is a channel. It is for digging a trench so the water flows where it is supposed to flow. Your mother has dammed the river. We are not going to blow the dam. We are just going to divert the water. What do we do? Naomi Price is a fine attorney, he said. Aggressive, but this is not a legal matter anymore. It is a family matter. We are going to offer them one final chance at grace. Grace, after this. They will contact you again, he said. They are desperate. The bank is calling. The $42,000 is just the beginning. They are trapped. When they contact you, you will not respond with Naomi Price. You will respond with an invitation. You will invite them to dinner. A nice public place. You will let them tell their story. You will let them lie. You will let them dig. And then, you will give them one chance to tell the true story. The whole story. About the loan, about the signature, about the forgery. And if they don't, then, Elliot said, tapping the leather folder, we light the fuse, no prison, no criminal record, just consequences. The river flows back to its original bed. Their access to the Thorn Trust, which they have been living off of without even knowing it, is cut. The bank will get a call from my lawyers. The debt will be handled, but they will be finished. He pushed the pen box toward me. Keep this. He signaled for the check. I ripped the small green and white ticket from my pad. $6, apple pie and coffee. He pulled a money clip from his pocket. He laid a $20 bill on the counter. This is for you. The rest is for the pie. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a single coin. He slid it across the counter. It spun, settling flat. It was a quarter, old, silver. I looked closer. The date on it was my birth year. What's this for? A reminder, Elliot Thorne said. Standing up, he put on his coat. You are going to be facing a great deal of pressure. They are going to tell you that your value is based on what you can do for them. They are going to try and liquidate your life, your home, your future, for $42,000. He tapped the quarter. Your value is not its denomination. Your worth is not what you are willing to pay. It is what you are willing to protect. He turned and walked to the door. Wait, I called out. He paused, his hand on the door, the bell chiming. What if I'm not a thorn? What if I'm a coward? Elliot looked at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. You are wearing a waitress uniform at midnight. Brooklyn, to protect your own soul. You are already a thorn. The rest is just paperwork. He walked out. I stood there for a long time, the smell of old coffee and warm apples. The clock ticked. I picked up the pen. It was heavy. I picked up the quarter. It was solid. I went to my locker. I took the manila folder with the forged document. I put the pen and the quarter inside it. The plan did not start with a warm breakfast. It started in the cold of a Tuesday night. With a $6 pie and a 20-year-old debt, the desperate texts started 48 hours after I closed the door on them. They were a barrage of manipulated grief, financial terror, and finally, abject panic. Marissa. The bank called again. They are serious. They use the word legal. You have to help, Lydia. Your father isn't sleeping. He looks gray. Is this what you want? To kill your father? Marissa. This is the last time I'm asking. They are giving me till the end of the month. Call me. We can fix this. You can fix this. I let the text sit for a full day. I had my plan. Elliot's plan. I opened the old, dead group chat. The squad. I reactivated it. I typed one message. I cannot fix this over text. Meet me for dinner. Sunday, 7 p.m. Harborlight Bistro. My treat. We will talk this through. As a family. One time. Marissa's reply was instant. We'll be there. Lydia's was 2 seconds later. Thank you, baby. I knew you'd come through. I texted Aunt Madison. Aunt Mad, I am meeting the family on Sunday at 7. Harborlight Bistro. I need a witness. Can you please be there? Just to... Listen. Her reply, I'll be there at 6:30. The Harborlight Bistro was not a place for a quiet family argument. It was a place for public, binding agreements. It was all glass and exposed brick. With an open kitchen and a sprawling, U-shaped bar, it was loud, bright, and impeccably staffed. A perfect neutral territory. I had briefed the team. At 6:45, Elliot Thorne, my grandfather, entered. He was dressed as Mr. Grayson, a wealthy retiree. He took a quiet corner booth, one with a clear view of the entire restaurant. He opened a newspaper and ordered a whiskey. At 6:50, Naomi Price, my attorney, arrived. She wore a dark gray silk blouse, not her red power suit. She looked like a high-powered consultant. She took a seat at the end of the bar, ordered a sparkling water with lime, and opened a thin, elegant laptop. At 6:55, Evan Brooks, my boyfriend, arrived. He looked like Evan. He was on his phone, looking slightly stressed, as if he was waiting for a business colleague. He took a two-top table near the door, with a clear line of sight to me, and ordered an appetizer. At 7 o'clock on the dot, I walked in with Aunt Madison. She looked nervous. I felt calm. I was a regional manager, and this was a performance review. The maitre d' showed us to the best table in the house, a large, round six-top, right in the center of the room. They arrived at 7:15, late, flustered. My father, Victor, Lydia, and Marissa. They looked like they had been through a war. Their clothes were wrinkled. Marissa's eyes were red and puffy. Lydia was vibrating with a nervous, angry energy. Brooklyn, Lydia breathed, sitting down without taking her coat off. Thank you. Thank you for this. Let's wait until we've eaten, I said, signaling for a waiter. We ordered water. The silence was a thick, heavy blanket. Aunt Madison was staring at her napkin. My father was studying a water spot on the table. Lydia, as always, broke first. She reached across the table, her hand aimed for mine. I moved my hand to pick up my water glass. She missed, her hand landing on the white tablecloth like a dead bird. Brooklyn, honey, she started, her voice already cracking. We know what it looked like, that day at your condo. We were just so worried. We were in a panic. We didn't mean it like that. We just love you. And we were scared. Marissa, on cue, let out a small, wet sniffle. I understand, I said. My voice was calm. I understand you're scared. I reached down to my bag, which was on the floor. I pulled out a single, thin, empty manila folder. I placed it on the table, right in the center. What's that? Marissa asked, her voice suspicious. This, I said, is where we're going to put the agreement, but I can't agree to anything. I can't fix anything. Until I understand, completely. I looked at Marissa. I'm not your regional manager. I'm not your mother. I don't know the whole story. Before we talk about solutions, about my condo, or my money, I want to hear it. From you. From the beginning. What exactly happened? Marissa looked at Lydia. Lydia gave her a short, sharp nod. Marissa took a deep, shuddering breath, and the performance began. She launched into the narrative. The $42,000 debt, the predatory landlord, the surprise triple net lease. She cried about the long hours. She cried about her kids. She cried about the fear of losing the house, her one big, vague, terrifying threat. I, I just, I did what I had to do, she sobbed. I was just trying to build something for the family, for Mom and Dad, so they could be proud. It was a beautiful speech. It hit all the marks. Desperation, family, guilt. It was missing one. Crucial. $42,000 detail. She never, not once, mentioned the bank. She never mentioned a loan. She never mentioned a guarantee. I let her finish. The restaurant noise swelled around us. The clatter of plates. A burst of laughter from the bar. I see, I said, my voice full of practiced sympathy. So, you're in debt, and you need a solution. As I said the word solution, I caught Naomi's eye from across the room. She subtly tapped her glass. The maitre d', who had been hovering, walked over to our table. Excuse me, Ms. Hernandez, he said, his voice professional. The device you requested for the agreement. He placed a sleek, black digital signature pad on the table, right next to the empty folder. My family stared at it. What is that? Lydia snapped, her voice no longer tearful. Just a precaution, I said smoothly, turning the device to face them. To make sure whatever we agree to tonight, whatever help I decide to give, is final, binding, for everyone. We're going to write it all down. I reached into my purse, and we need to use the right pen to make it official. I pulled out 3 pens, one by one, and laid them in a neat row. Here, I said, is a standard blue ballpoint, the kind you'd find at a bank. I placed the second one, a black gel pen, my personal favorite, and then I placed the third one, the heavy, black lacquer and platinum fountain pen, Elliot's pen. It landed on the table with a solid, definitive thud. And this one? Lydia, Marissa, and my father stared at the pens. Aunt Madison was as pale as the tablecloth. I don't understand, Marissa stammered. I leaned forward. The performance was over. My voice was not angry. It was not sad. It was a scalpel. You told me about the debt. Marissa, I said. You told me about the landlord. You told me about the house. But you didn't tell me about the Central Valley Regional Bank. Marissa's face went from pale to chalk white. Lydia made a small, choking sound. You didn't tell me about the commercial loan, I continued. The one you defaulted on. The one that's actually threatening the house. You didn't tell me about the guarantor. I looked her dead in the eye. Did you sign for me? Marissa? Did you borrow my name? The silence was a black hole. It sucked all the sound from the restaurant. Aunt Madison put her hand over her mouth. My father, Victor, looked at Lydia, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrified comprehension. He had not known. He genuinely had not known. Marissa just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. She looked at Lydia. Lydia's face was a mask of gray terror. From the table near the door, Evan's voice carried, just slightly. He was pretending to be on a call. No, it's incredible. This new security tech, they can trace anything now. Scan an IP from a family member's house. Pull the metadata right off a PDF. You can't get away with anything these days. It's wild. Lydia broke. It was just a formality, she hissed, her voice a desperate, penetrating whisper. A symbolic signature. The bank. They just needed a name. A good, clean name. We knew. We knew you'd help eventually. It didn't mean anything. It was just paperwork. It didn't mean anything, I repeated, my voice flat. My eyes never left Marissa. It was a $42,000 loan. Mom, that's not symbolic. That's fraud. I turned back to my sister. Her face was a ruin. I'm going to ask you one more time. Marissa, I need the whole truth. Not half, not Lydia's version, your version, the complete truth, now. Marissa's face crumpled. It was not a performance this time. It was a complete, ego-dissolving collapse. A raw, ugly wail tore out of her throat. Yes, she screamed. Heads turned. The laughter at the bar stopped. Yes, okay, I did it, Aunt Madison gasped. My father flinched as if struck. I signed your name, Marissa shrieked, tears and snot streaming down her face. I borrowed your signature, I didn't. I didn't know what else to do. The bank wouldn't take Mom and Dad's signature again. I needed a clean name, I knew. I knew if I asked, you'd say no. You'd be selfish. Like you are. You'd say no, I thought you'd help anyway. Once it was done. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders heaving. The entire restaurant was silent. From the bar, Naomi Price tapped her watch. She took a sip of her seltzer. From the corner booth, Elliot Thorne slowly turned a page of his newspaper. I had it. The confession, public, witnessed, and thanks to the microphone in Naomi's laptop bag, legally recorded. The game was over. Now, it was time to set the terms of surrender. The restaurant was a frozen tableau. Marissa's sobs had died down to a series of wretched, hiccuping gasps. Every diner in our vicinity was pretending not to be staring, which meant they were all staring intently. My father looked like he had been hollowed out. Aunt Madison was just sad. Lydia was vibrating, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The victim card had been declined, and now she was just a bad customer. I let the silence sit. I let them swim in the public, sticky mess of her confession. Well, I said, my voice calm and low, cutting through the restaurant's resumed murmur. Thank you, Marissa. That was the truth. Finally, I reached into my bag and pulled out a different folder. This one was not empty. I slid it across the table, on top of the blank one. Now, here is what is going to happen, I said. First, I am not selling my condo, ever. Second, I'm not paying a single dollar of a debt that was fraudulently attached to my name. Brooklyn, Lydia started, her voice a low hiss. You cannot do this to us. In public, you are embarrassing your sister. You are embarrassing yourselves, I said, my voice not rising. You embarrassed yourselves when you ran my credit. You embarrassed yourselves when you forged my name. You embarrassed yourselves when you showed up at my home with a plan to liquidate my life. We are way past embarrassment. Mom, we are in the territory of consequences. I tapped the new folder. You're right about the bank. Marissa, they are very serious. And you know what? So am I. I opened the folder. The first document I slid across the table was not the forgery. It was a single printed sheet. This, I said, is the IP address history from the scanner that uploaded the guarantee to the bank. It's a residential IP. It traces back to your house, Mom, the one I grew up in. I slid the second paper. It was a series of blurry, time-stamped screenshots. And this is from the notary's webcam log for that day. As you can see, for the 2 hours he was supposedly watching me sign this document, he was, in fact, notarizing a very dusty ficus tree. My father gasped and looked at Lydia. A ficus tree. What is she talking about? Lydia, what did you do? In our state, I continued, my voice smooth. And in Colorado, there is something called the Civil Forgery Act. It's a wonderful piece of legislation. It means that any debt incurred via a fraudulent signature is immediately null and void. But it also allows the victim, that's me, to sue the perpetrators. That's you, Marissa, and you, Mom, for recovery of all legal fees, punitive damages, and, of course, the full amount of the original fraudulent debt. Marissa's eyes widened. Sue Brooklyn. No, you wouldn't. So, we have 2 options, I said, leaning back as a waiter, expertly ignoring us, refilled my water glass. Option 1, the hard way. I hand this folder and the audio recording of this dinner to my attorney who, by the way, is sitting at the bar. She will file a civil suit tomorrow morning. The loan will be declared void. The bank will then, most likely, press criminal charges for bank fraud. You both, Ba and Marissa, will probably be arrested, Dad. You might be too, as an accessory. You'll lose the house in the lawsuit anyway. It's clean. It's final. And it's what you deserve. Brooklyn, my father whispered, horrified. Arrested. But, I said, holding up a hand, I am a regional manager, and I prefer an efficient, clean solution. So, I am offering option 2, the gentle way. I pushed the empty folder and the digital signature pad back to the center of the table. 1 Marissa, you will sign a full, detailed, written confession. In it, you will outline the date of the forgery, the amount, the bank, and the fact that I had no knowledge of it. 2. You will sign a legally binding repayment plan, to be determined by my lawyer, for the full amount of the debt plus interest, which you will pay back to the bank. 3 Mom, you will co-sign it, making you legally liable for the debt you encouraged. 4. You will both sign a letter of apology, not to me, but to the bank and to the state notary board, admitting what you did. 5. The entire family, Dad included, will sign a financial non-interference clause, a legal document, a restraining order, that forbids any of you from ever asking me, implying, or suggesting I give, loan, or invest a single penny in any of you, for any reason, for the rest of my life. I let the terms hang in the air. And if you do this, I concluded, if you agree to all of that, tonight, right now, I won't sue, I won't go to the police, and I will not trigger the fuse clause. Lydia's head, which had been bowed in defeat, snapped up. What? What did you say, the fuse clause? Oh, I said, feigning surprise. You haven't heard of it. It's from the Thorne Family Trust. The name hit the table like a brick. My father's face went white. Lydia just looked confused. Thorne. What is that? What? What trust? Who is Thorne? Aunt Madison, beside me, closed her eyes. She had known. She had known the name. She looked away. A small, sad shake of her head. She finally understood. This was not a family fight. This was a dynastic shift. It doesn't matter what it is. Mom, I said, my voice steel. All you need to know is that it's an ethical sponsorship source, a trust that, it turns out, I have access to, and its one unbreakable rule is about protecting family members from exploitation. If I tell my lawyer to activate the fuse clause, a team of auditors you cannot possibly imagine will descend on every financial dealing you have ever made. They will freeze every account you have, including the one you didn't even know you were benefiting from. They will seize the house. They will end you. It will be messy. I leaned in. Option 1 is prison. Option 2 is my gentle way. Option 3 is the fuse clause. I smiled. I am offering you option 2. It's the deal of a lifetime. I suggest you take it. Marissa was shaking. She was cornered. But even a cornered rat still tries to bargain. Wait, she stammered, looking at me, the old manipulative instinct flickering. Brooke, please, it's all just paperwork. If you just signed the guarantee again, just signed it for real. Now. We could make it legal. We could fix it. The bank would be happy. It would all just go away. Please, Brooke, just sign it. I just stared at her. She had confessed to a felony, and her first move was to ask me to join the felony, to make it legal, to take on her $42,000 mistake. I didn't speak. I just shook my head, a slow, final, definite no, from the table near the door. Evan stood up, as if leaving. He paused by our table, a stranger offering casual advice. You know, he said, looking at Marissa with a kind of detached pity. I'm just a guy, but it sounds like honesty now is a hell of a lot cheaper than honesty in court. He looked at me, a quick, supportive glance, and then walked out of the restaurant. The words hung in the air. Lydia's shoulders slumped. She was defeated. The calculation was done. Prison, financial ruin, or public humiliation. She chose the one she could still control. We "We will sign," she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. "We will sign. But, this stays in the family. The letters, the agreement. It stays with us. It does not go out." I looked at Naomi Price, who was now standing at the end of our table, as if she'd been summoned. "The agreement," Naomi said, her voice crisp and clear, "will be filed with my office. The letters of apology will be sent to the bank. This is a legal proceeding. Mrs. Hernandez, there is no keeping it in the family. The family is the very reason we are here." She turned the digital pad toward Marissa. "We will start with the confession, but first, a formality. We need to verify all signatures against a known, natural sample to make sure everything is authentic. I don't have my driver's license," Marissa stammered. "Oh, we don't need that," Naomi said, smiling that thin, dangerous smile. "We just need a natural, uncoached signature, a baseline." I picked up the 3 pens. I held them out. "Wait," I said. "Let's make sure it's the right one, the one you prefer." I held the blue ballpoint. "This one." Marissa shook her head. I held up the black gel pen. "This one." Marissa shook her head. I picked up the heavy, black fountain pen, the one from Elliot. "This one." Then, I didn't offer it. I pushed it across the table. "Sign your name. Marissa. Sign it with this." Marissa looked at the pen as if it were a snake. It was heavy, alien. She picked it up. She held it. Wrong. She held it clutched in her fist, like a child holding a crayon, her thumb overlapping her forefinger, the nib at a completely wrong angle. Just sign my name," she whispered. "Just your name." Naomi said, watching her hand. Marissa put the pen to the white tablecloth. She hesitated, her hand visibly shaking. She tried to write, M-A-R. The soft, flexible nib of the fountain pen, which required a light touch and a specific angle, caught on the cotton fiber. Ink splayed, a thick, ugly black spiderweb. The pen was too heavy for her grip, and her signature, the one she had so easily faked, was a deformed, spiky, illegible mess. She looked at the ink stain in horror. Naomi Price nodded, as if to herself. She took the pen from Marissa's trembling hand. "A natural signature," Naomi said, her voice clinical and final. "Fluid, unconscious, impossible to replicate under pressure." She looked at the forgery, then she looked at the ink-stained tablecloth. "And just as impossible to fake with a soft nib fountain pen. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. That's all the verification we need." The next morning, at 9 a.m., I was in a place I never expected to be, the executive boardroom at Aurelia Rehabilitation Systems. It was not a room I had ever seen. My work at Kestrel was separate, and my relationship with Evan was personal. But a car had been sent for me. Naomi Price was already there, sitting at a long, polished obsidian table, looking completely at home. Aunt Madison was there, too. Sitting next to Naomi, looking pale but resolute, and at the head of the table, in a high-backed leather chair, sat Elliot Thorne, my grandfather, the diner patron, the silent founder. Today, he was not wearing a heavy wool coat. He was wearing an impeccably tailored, dark gray suit. The room was silent. The view of the Ravenport Peaks from the 40th floor window was staggering. 3 other people, 2 men and a woman I did not know, sat at the table, each with a slim leather folder in front of them. They were the other members of the Thorne Family Trust. Elliot looked at me. His eyes were not the sad, kind eyes from the diner. They were the sharp, assessing eyes of a chairman. "Ms. Hernandez," he said, his voice formal. "Thank you for joining us." I was completely, utterly boggled. My mind was reeling. I had gone from waitress to victim to strategist, and now I was a line item on a meeting agenda. I felt like I was breaking apart and being assembled into someone new, all at once. "Elliot," I started. "Mr. Thorne, in this room," he corrected, but not unkindly. "Please, Sit. We have much to cover. I sat. Naomi gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. We are here. Elliot, Mr. Thorne began. To review a formal grievance filed under Section 4 of the Thorne Family Trust, the ethical heir. The grievance concerns the willful, fraudulent, and coercive exploitation of one family member, Ms. Brooklyn Hernandez, by two listed beneficiaries, Mrs. Lydia Hernandez and Ms. Marissa Hernandez. His voice was a cold, clear, corporate instrument. One of the other trustees, a woman with silver hair, spoke. We have reviewed the evidence packet, the forged loan guarantee, the metadata, the travel receipts, and as of last night, the signed confession and a full audio recording of the admission. Naomi must have given them the recording from her laptop. The recording is damning, said one of the men. The admission is public, witnessed, and unequivocal. This is a clean-cut trigger of the fuse clause. Elliot looked at the woman. Ms. Vane, please read the clause. The woman read in a clear, precise monotone. In the event of such a breach, all financial support, direct or indirect, from the Thorne Family Trust to the offending beneficiaries will be immediately and permanently frozen. All assets purchased with trust funds will be subject to recall. A full civil investigation will be launched. L computers, and the digital and analog components that compose them, are the backbones of modern society, from the smartphones in our pockets to the massive data centers powering the cloud. Understanding these components is essential for anyone interested in technology. This breakdown will explore the primary hardware components of a typical computer, explaining what they do and how they interact. 1. The motherboard. The central hub. The motherboard is the main circuit board of a computer. Think of it as the central nervous system, or the skeleton. It holds all the most important components together and provides the electrical pathways for them to communicate. Function. It houses the CPU, RAM, and expansion slots, and it connects all other peripherals like the hard drive, power supply, and ports. Key feature. The bus is the set of electrical pathways on the motherboard that allows data to travel between components. 2. The CPU Central Processing Unit. The brain. The CPU is the brain of the computer. It executes instructions and performs the calculations that allow the computer to run. Nearly everything you do on a computer, from opening a program to typing a sentence, has to be processed by the CPU. Function. To fetch, decode, and execute instructions from the computer's memory. Key metrics. Clock speed, measured in gigahertz. GAAs. This is simplistically the number of cycles of instructions the CPU can perform per second. Cores. Modern CPUs have multiple cores, each of which can act as a separate processor. A quad-core CPU can in theory perform 4 tasks simultaneously. 3. RAM Random Access Memory. Short-term memory. RAM is the computer's short-term or volatile memory. It holds the data and instructions for the programs and files you are currently working on. When you open a program, it's loaded from the hard drive into RAM, so the CPU can access it quickly. Function. To provide fast, temporary storage for active applications. Key feature. RAM is volatile, meaning it forgets everything when the power is turned off. This is why you need to save your work to a hard drive. 4. Storage drives. HDD. SSD. Long-term memory. Storage drives are the computer's long-term or non-volatile memory. They store your operating system, software, and personal files, documents, photos, music, even when the power is off. There are 2 main types. Hard disk drive HDD. The older, traditional storage. It uses spinning magnetic platters to read and write data. Much like a tiny record player, pros high capacity, low cost, cons slow, fragile due to moving parts. Solid-state drive. SSD. The modern standard. It uses flash memory chips similar to a USB drive or smartphone and has no moving parts. Pros: extremely fast, durable, silent, Cons: more expensive per gigabyte than an HDD. 5. The GPU graphics processing unit. The artist. The GPU is a specialized processor designed to handle complex visual tasks. While a CPU is a generalist that can do a few things at once, a GPU is a specialist with thousands of smaller cores designed to perform one specific task, like rendering 3D graphics in parallel. Function: to render images, videos, and 3D animations for display on the monitor. Key feature: essential for gaming, video editing, and modern AI, which uses the GPU's parallel processing for machine learning. Many CPUs have a basic, integrated GPU, but dedicated, separate GPUs are far more powerful. 6. The power supply unit, PSU. The heart: the PSU is what pulls electrical power from the wall outlet and converts it into the specific, stable, low-voltage DC power that all the other components need to run. Function: to supply and regulate power to the entire system. Key feature: a poor quality or underpowered PSU can cause system instability, crashes, and even damage other components. 7. Peripherals: the senses input/output. These are the analog components that allow the computer to interact with the outside world and with us. Input devices. Analog to digital. These devices take analog information from the real world and convert it into digital data the computer can understand. Keyboard mouse convert physical movement and button presses into digital location and command signals. Microphone converts the analog sound waves of your voice into a digital audio signal. Scanner/camera converts analog light information into a digital image file. Output devices. Digital to analog. These devices take digital data from the computer and convert it into a form we can perceive. Monitor converts a digital video signal into analog light, which we see as pixels on a screen. Speakers, headphones. Convert a digital audio signal into analog electrical signals that vibrate a cone, creating the sound waves we hear. Printer converts a digital document file into analog ink or toner deposited on paper. How they work together. An example: you press the power button. The PSU sends a power good signal to the motherboard. The motherboard wakes up the CPU. The CPU pulls its first instructions from a small chip ROM and tells the storage drive SSD to load the operating system, e.g., Windows, Mac OS. The operating system files are copied from the SSD into RAM. The CPU now executes the instructions from RAM to show your desktop. The GPU takes the digital desktop data and converts it into a signal for your monitor output. You double-click a program icon with your mouse input. The CPU gets the command, tells the SSD to find the program, and loads it into RAM. You type a sentence on your keyboard input. The keystrokes go to the CPU, which processes them and sends the visual letter data to the GPU, which displays it on the monitor output. All of this happens instantly, all coordinated through the pathways on the motherboard. The invitation was not a request. It was a summons, delivered by Naomi's office. A final dinner, my home, 7 p.m. Be prompt. This was not a negotiation. It was the ratification of a treaty. I did not invite the children. This was not a family reunion. This was a closing. I made spaghetti. It felt absurdly domestic, the smell of garlic and tomatoes filling the air of the condo they had tried to liquidate. I made a simple green salad. I bought no bakery items. I set my honey gold table, the one I had sanded and varnished with my own hands, and in the center of the table, I placed the two objects that mattered, the old silver quarter from the diner, my birth year facing up, and beside it, the heavy, black lacquer fountain pen. They arrived at 7 o'clock on the dot. My mother, Lydia, my father, Victor, and Marissa. They did not look like invaders. They looked diminished. They were ghosts, hollowed out, their faces gray with the stress of their new, binding reality. Aunt Madison arrived a minute later. As I had requested, she was the witness. They sat, stiffly. where I indicated. The silence was thick, broken only by the sound of Marissa's shallow, nervous breathing. She was staring at the pen. Lydia was staring at the front door, as if expecting Naomi to walk in with handcuffs. We're here, Brooklyn, my father said, his voice a dry, rasping sound. I see that, I said. As I was about to speak, my doorbell rang. Excuse me, I said. I walked to the door and opened it. Elliot Thorne stood there. He was not the diner patron, nor was he the corporate chairman. He was just Elliot. He wore a dark cashmere sweater and held a single, expensive bottle of red wine. I believe I was invited, he said, his voice warm. You were? I said, stepping aside. Come in. You're the guest of honor. He walked past me into the dining area. He placed the wine on the counter and turned to the table, his smile pleasant, as if greeting old, distant acquaintances. Lydia, he said, it has been a very long time. Victor, Marissa. I watched my mother's face. It was a slow, agonizing, beautiful collapse. It cycled through 5 distinct stages. First, pure confusion. Second, irritation that a stranger had interrupted this. Execution. Third, a dim, horrified flicker of recognition. Fourth, a desperate, internal calculation as she connected him to the Thorne family trust and the fuse clause. And fifth, gray, ashen, absolute defeat. She had not just been caught, she had been, for her entire adult life, completely outplayed by a man she thought she had erased. She looked at the man whose name she had forbidden, whose money she had unknowingly been living on, and whose granddaughter she had tried to defraud. Elliot, she whispered. The name was a puff of dust, a ghost leaving her body. You, my father breathed, looking from Elliot to me, the connection finally, blindingly, snapping into place. You're Thorne. Marissa just stared, her mouth open. The game was not just over. The entire board had been flipped, and she had never even known who the other players were. I returned to the table. I remained standing. Elliot took the seat at the head of the table, opposite my father. It was a seat he had earned. This, I said, my voice quiet but caring in the small space, is the last time we will all be in this room like this. This is the boundary. I looked from my mother, to my sister, to my father. I am no longer your resource. I am no longer your helper, your weekend labor, your bank, or your emergency fund. I am your daughter. I am your sister. I let that hang in the air. From this moment forward, anyone who wishes to be in my life will treat me with respect. Anyone who sees me as a solution, a signature, or a wallet, can find the door. I nodded toward the hallway. It's right there. You all know the way. No one moved. Before we eat, I said, my lawyer has asked me to formally confirm the terms of the agreement you all signed last night. I did not need Naomi's notes. I had memorized every word. You have signed a full written apology to the Central Valley Regional Bank, admitting to the forgery. You have signed a binding, non-negotiable repayment plan for the full $42,000, plus interest, for which Marissa and Lydia Hernandez are jointly and severally liable, and you have all, Dad, you too, signed a permanent financial non-interference order. You will not ask me for money. You will not ask me to borrow money on your behalf. You will not use my name, my credit, or my reputation ever again. Is that clear? Lydia's head was bowed. Marissa nodded, her eyes squeezed shut. But my mother had one last, dying ember of manipulation. She had to try. She looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. But this time, they were not for her. They were for her story. She started, her voice thick. I did it. I did it for her, for my daughter, for her children, my grandchildren. Her eyes pleaded with me. A mother does what she has to do, for her family. The old, familiar guilt, the final toxic argument. I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt no anger. I just felt pity. No, Mom, I said. The words were soft, but they were final. A mother does what she has to do, but love, real love, has a tendency to ask, "Are you okay?" long before it asks, "Do you have money?" You skipped the first question my entire life and went straight to the second. That's not love. That's accounting. That was it. The last defense was shattered. The room was still. Marissa, her hand shaking so badly she could barely grip her purse, reached into it. She pulled out a simple, white, bank-issued envelope. She did not look at me. She slid it across the table, the paper scraping against the wood. I opened it. Inside was a personal check, drawn on her own, bare-bones checking account. The memo line just said, "Payment." The amount was small. It was a pathetic, agonizingly tiny fraction of the debt. It would take her decades to pay it all back. But the check was real. The ink was real. Her signature, shaky and thin, was real. It was her first installment. It was a start. Elliot, from his seat, reached over and placed his hand on my shoulder. It was a light, warm pressure, but it felt as solid as the mountains outside my window. "I am so proud of you, Brooklyn," he said, his voice quiet but for the whole table to hear. "Not for your success, not for the job, but for the moment you finally, truly chose to say no." I let his words settle. He was right. The no was my victory. I looked at my family, shattered and silent. I looked at Elliot, my anchor. I looked at the table. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, carved wooden box, one I had bought at a local street fair. I opened it. Inside was the spare key to my condo, the one I used to leave under the mat, the one Lydia and Marissa had always assumed gave them access, the one that represented my home, my life, my stability. I held it up. They all watched it, glinting in the warm light. Then, slowly, I closed my hand around it. I did not put it in the box. I did not put it on the table. I closed my fist, the metal teeth biting into my palm, and I slipped my hand, with the key, back into my own pocket. I was not giving the key to my life away to anyone, ever again. Lydia watched the key vanish. She watched my hand close, and that simple, symbolic act was the one that finally broke her. A sound tore out of her, a low, guttural, animal sound of absolute, bottomless loss. It was not a performance. It was not for sympathy. It was the sound of a woman realizing she had lost everything. Not because of a bank, not because of a debt, but because of her own, relentless, hollowing greed. "I'm sorry," she wept, her head collapsing onto her arms on the table, her shoulders heaving. "Oh, God, Brooklyn, I am so sorry." It was the first time in my life I had heard her say those words and mean them. The first time she was not sorry for herself, but sorry for what she had done. I looked at this small, broken woman, my mother. I nodded. Once, I accepted the apology. I did not accept the responsibility to fix her. That was her job now. I reached for the centerpiece. I picked up the silver quarter. My birth year flashed in the light. Your value is not its denomination. My value was my decision. I closed my fist around it and slid it deep into my pocket, where it clicked against the key. Then, I picked up the pen, the heavy black fountain pen, B. Hernandez, E. Thorne. I held it for a moment, feeling its weight, and then, with a slow, deliberate motion, I pressed the cap back onto the body of the pen. The sound, in the quiet, grieving room, was as loud as a bank vault locking, a final, definitive click, the sound of a lock engaging, the sound of a new law being engraved. The knot was untied. The game was over. I looked up. The warm yellow lights of my living room, the one they had come to liquidate, felt soft and safe. The chairs were full, but the tension was gone, replaced by the heavy, thick silence of an ending. My revenge was never about the money, the condo, or the forgery. It was about this. This moment, the moment the click sounded, and for the first time in my life, respect was established. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to connect with all of you. Please comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from, and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it some extra love by hitting the hype button so more people can hear this story.